Okay, welcome once again, everyone. I hope everyone gave the test and didn't find it very difficult. But some of you have missed the test, beta. But to tell you the truth, these tests are very important, and everyone should attempt these tests. It is on the basis of these tests only that we will be able to move you ahead. Supposing we don't open, or I don't know about the circumstances, how the school will open or not. So please keep giving these tests. Fine, they are not very difficult. You can ask them who attempted the test. They are very simple ones. So please do give them. Okay, let's begin. Now today we have to do a new poem, and the name of the poem is Unfolding Bud. Okay, now this poem, before we start, it is about a water lily. Water lily, lily that grows in the water. It's a water plant. So it's about a water lily, and it is a simple very simple poem, but it has very deep meaning. Now, the simple in the word, in the sense, because the words are very simple, they are not very difficult to understand. Once you read the poem, you'll be able to understand what the poet is trying to say. But it has a very deep meaning. Means the words say something, but they reflect something else. When you read it twice or thrice, or maybe 4 or 5 times, then you realize what the poet is trying to tell us. So the poet initially starts off by telling that we are all amazed. One is amazed by a water lily. Amazed means we are surprised by a water lily. We are struck by awe. We just are surprised to see how the water lily is. One is amazed by a water lily unfolding with each passing day, taking on a richer color and new dimension. Now, when one sees nature, one is always amazed. Yeah, you see birds, you see flowers, you see trees, whatever you see, we are really amazed at how God has made such beautiful things. So while we are watching a water lily, we are amazed because it unfolds each passing day. Unfolds means the petals open. It's a closed bud, and then it slowly starts opening. And with each day, it becomes more beautiful, more richer in color, more bigger in size. That is what the poem is telling us about. Now, see here. One is amazed by a water lily unfolding with each passing day. Unfolding with each passing day. As the day passes, one day it is closed, and the other day it's a bigger opens again, and a few petals open, then opens and opens, and until and unless it's a big, beautiful flower, taking on a richer color and new dimension. Richer color means the color also changes. You see a rose bud. In the morning, one day when it is out, it is closed like this. Then it starts opening, the petals open, it becomes red. And then sometimes you think the color is changing, and then it flew full bloom. It is so beautiful to see. Same way, the water lily also take a richer color changes, and new dimension means it increases in size. Okay, so the poet is telling us that when we look at the water lily, we are just surprised. We just wonder that how come a small bud opens, and finally opens it to a new big flower with a richer color and a new size, bigger size. One is not amazed at a first glance by a poem which is eyes tight closed as a tiny bud. Now here, the poet is trying to compare the water lily with a poem. Okay, there are two comparisons. One is between the comparison is between the bud of the water lily and the poem. Okay, now how are they similar? He's trying to tell us they are similar in the way that one is not amazed at a first glance by a poem. When you look at a poem, you don't understand the real meaning of the poem as such. No, when you take a first look at the poem, you say, okay, fine. If we look at this poem, you'll say, fine. It's a simple poem, no difficult words. You can understand the meaning very nicely. So there's not much big hassle in it. No? You just read. You don't need a teacher to explain it to you. But what the poet is trying to tell here is one is not amazed at the first glance by a poem which is as tight closed as the tiny bud. But the poet is trying to tell us, don't be mistaken that that you have understood the poem at the first reading. There may be some hidden meanings in the poem which you will be able to understand once you read the poem again and again, maybe 2 times, maybe 3 times. Okay, so that is why it is telling like the bud takes a richer color and increases in size as day passes. It keeps opening, 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 bigger, nicer color, more beautiful to look at. The same way, you read the poem once, you get the main gist of the poem. But when you read it twice, thrice, 4 times, then you get the inner meanings of the words. There is always double or triple meanings to the poem. On a first glance, they may be telling something very simpler. But when you keep reading it, you will understand, okay, the poet means this also or this also. Okay, so that is what the poet is trying to tell you, that there is a similarity between the bud of the water lily and the poem. So one is not amazed at the first glance by the poem, which is as tight closed as the tiny bud. Yet, one is surprised to see the poem gradually unfolding, revealing its richer inner self as one reads it again and over again. So, the poet is trying to tell that when you keep reading the poem twice, thrice, 4 times, you will gradually learn, understand what the poet is trying to tell you, what is the real meaning of the poem. In this poem also, beta, if you see, bud is closed, you don't know what is inside that bud. But when it gradually opens, you finally see the rich inside color, the beautiful flower, the shape of the flower. When it is closed, you don't know how the flower will look like. Supposing you are seeing the water lily for the first time, you won't be able to judge that how will it look when it opens. So you'll have to wait, you'll have to see it every day to see how it will look on the final day when it opens. In the same way, the poem, when you keep reading it, then after 5 6 readings, you'll come to know, okay, this is what the poem is trying to tell us. So there lies the similarity between the bud and the poem. So until and unless you wait and watch, then only you will come to know the final meaning of the poem. And if you wait and watch, you'll be able to see the rich color and the change in the flower which happens after days of blooming. That is why the poet is telling, yet one is not surprised to see the gradual unfolding. The poem is not unfolding, the poem is not blooming, it is unfolding. Means it is having new meanings. The new meanings are coming to your mind. Okay, this is what the poet is trying to tell us, revealing its rich inner self as one reads it again and again. And sometimes it is so with people also, beta. This is not in the poem, I'm just telling it to you as a matter of fact. People also, sometimes people also, when you meet those people for the first time, supposing you meet a friend or you meet a person for the first time, you will judge the person according to the outer appearance of the person. How he talks, okay, fine, he's good, he's okay, or no, he's not polite, he's not humble, he's not good looking. But when you keep meeting that person day after day for supposing a week or so, then you come to know about the real person he or she is. So until and unless you keep meeting that person, keep talking to that person, you don't know what is there inside that person, what a person he really is. So it needs some time to understand a person. So it needs time to understand the poem also. You need to read it at least twice, thrice to get the real meaning of the poem. Okay, so I hope you have understood. This is only there are only 3 small paragraphs of this poem. The first paragraph is telling you about how the lily opens and shows you a beautiful flower. The second paragraph tell you that same as the bud is closed, poem is also closed on the first reading. You won't be able to understand the real meaning of the poem, but as you go on reading it, it reveals different and you will understand the poem much better. And finally it tells you that we have to read, if to understand the poem, we have to read it twice, thrice, 4 times, 5 times, so that we can understand the real meaning. So the main poem, the main gist of this whole poem, or the what it is trying to teach us, is that the poem needs to be read and understood. It has to be read 2-3 times so that we can comprehend the real meaning of the poem. Okay, so like the same way for persons also, please don't judge a person on the first visit. When you meet them, give them time so that you can understand how the person is. So that is all for this poem. It's a small one. It's a very simple one, but it has a very deep meaning in it. Fine. So now let's just wait. I will do the question answers also in this video only. Okay, let's begin with the question answers of the poem. Okay. Understanding the poem. Okay, don't get confused. Appreciating the poem and lesson we are not doing. Fine. Okay, so the first question is, does the water lily opens up, that is bloom, quickly over a night or day, or gradually over a few days? What supports your answer? Okay, so just now we read it. That water lily opens up gradually. Even one go, it doesn't just open it like this. It takes time to open. And what supports your answer? Our answer is supported by the first paragraph of the poem itself. It's telling. Okay, yeah, it's telling. So let's see. The water lily blooms gradually over several days. The first stanza talks about how the water lily blooms with each passing day, taking on new color and growing in size. So this is what the first paragraph was about. It was telling us that how the water lily opens up, the petals opens gradually. Ek din mein thoda sa, pe dusre din, then it takes days to open. So gradually it opens. Okay, second one. What is amazing about the process of opening up? What two things change each day? Now, what is amazing about the process of opening up? क्या amazing thing है जब इसकी opening में क्या amazing thing है? So I think what is amazing is, the amazing thing about the process of opening up is that how gradually the lily opens on its own. God has made it so. It's just amazing to see how the birds fly. How the trees grow so tall, so strong. They can stand there in the wind, in the breeze, in thunder and lightning. How the sun rises, what beautiful night sky is. So what is amazing about the process of opening up is how gradually, धीरे धीरे कैसे water lily धीरे धीरे धीरे, कोई उसे खोल नहीं रहा है, अपने आप ही खुल रही है ना. So the water lily, how gradually the lily blooms on its own. And what two things change each day? The color and the dimension. The color changes and the size changes. Dimension of the water lily change each day. What is our first reading of the poem compared to? Do we find that surprising? Now, our first reading of the poem is compared to what? The first reading of a poem is compared to a closed bud. Closed bud of water lily. जैसे bud बंद है, उसके अंदर क्या है, we don't know. Same way, when we read the poem for the first time, we don't know what lies inside it. What is the second meaning of the poem? Okay. So what is the first reading of a poem is compared to a closed bud. This is not surprising, as most poems do not reveal their full meaning and message until they have been read over and over again. You remember the first poem, the Dances of the Lost Crane? And in that also, the thing the reader wanted to tell us was that please do take care of your environment. Otherwise, you'll be only looking at the photographs of the crane and they will be no more in our world. That was what the hidden meaning was. It was trying to taunt. It was trying to shake us up through that poem, that please, सिर्फ फोटो खींच के और उसे admire करने से हमारी environment को हम नहीं बचा सकते हैं. We have to do something now if we want to see these creatures living in the future. Okay, so this is not surprising, and most poems do not reveal the full meaning and message until they have been read over and over again. Until you go on reading, then you start thinking that, okay, this is what the poet meant. Let's move. Question 4. When are we actually surprised about the poem, and what causes it? When are we surprised? We are surprised by the poem when we have read it many times, as the poem's inner meaning slowly reveals itself to us. Now, we are surprised in the first reading, we don't get the whole meaning of the poem. So when we keep reading, then we say, okay, oh, acha. So this was the real meaning of the poem. Then we get the real meaning, the real sense, real thing which the poet trying to convey to us. So then we keep reading, we keep understanding, we get the real meaning. The fifth one. Does the poem just unfolds as time passes, or does it happens when we do something a few times? So does the poem just unfold? मतलब poem अपने आप से अनफोल्ड हो जाती है, अपने आप से हमें मीनिंग समझ में आ जाता है, या हम उसके लिए कुछ करते हैं? हम उसके लिए कुछ करते हैं, हमें पढ़ना पड़ता है. ऑब्वियसली पोएम अपने आप कैसे अनफोल्ड हो सकती है? The poem unfolds itself only when the reader reads it many times. When I will read the poem twice, thrice, 4 times, then only I will be able to understand the real meaning of the poem. Until and unless I read, the poem itself is not going to jump from the book and come into my head and make me understand what it means. Fine, so I will have to do the reading for it. The water lily grows larger in size and gets a deeper color as it unfolds. What does the poem do? So there was a comparison. The water lily also grows in size and get deeper color. So poem क्या करती है? Just as the water lily grows, get deeper color as it unfolds, so does the poem. Opens up and reveals its real, rich inner self. You keep reading, it will keep revealing the new meanings. To get to the inside of the poem, we have to read, 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 and read. Okay, so that finishes, that was the last question. I hope you all understood the poem and the question answers, beta. If you still have any problem, you can ask me in the class when we have the class. Okay, so bye for now. Please do take care and keep revising the poem. Bye, bye. Take care, beta.